Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Kiwi Talks. I am speaking to a well-known veteran New Zealand actor. He's been in films such as The Hobbit, King Kong, basically a good friend of Peter Jackson, I'm sure. And he's a master of theatre, and he's a comedy veteran as well. I'd like to welcome Mark Hadlow. How you doing, sir?
Thank you so much, man. That's nice. Yeah, I don't know about a close and personal friend of Peter Jackson, but he certainly is the most amicable of people, and I've enjoyed working with him on every project that I've been involved with. Yeah, amazing.
I just assume that because obviously he's cast you in a number of films now.
Yeah, I think it's about the work, though. To be honest, there's still a percentage of your work that means if you can deliver the goods on the day, when and where you do it, and you deliver them to a really good sort of standard, then you get the repeat work. It's like anything, you have to put in the work to make sure that you on the day you produce the goods, and that's been my motto for all of my career. I work as hard as I can for the people that employ you. It's as simple as that. And I'm very lucky to have actually done 4 projects now with Peter. I mean, I'm not in the Jed Brophy category, who's done almost every single film that Peter's produced in New Zealand. But there are a lot of great things that come out of that. Fantastic. And what he's done for New Zealand film and New Zealand actors and New Zealand crew, people, industries, other industries associated with it. There was a huge amount of money made out of Wellington when we did The Hobbit, not just in the film business, but like hospitality, hotel, same thing, but hospitalities, taxis, accommodation, restaurants, bars, boom, huge amount of money made and spent in Wellington and in New Zealand. So, the industry has a lot to offer, not just the people who are involved in it, but outside of that with the industries that are attached to it.
Yeah, because there's a bit of a before and after Lord of the Rings, I feel. I mean, I can't think of anyone else who's had more of a profound impact on New Zealand in the last 50 years than him in regards to what it did for New Zealand. Obviously Wellington, but if you think in terms of tourism as well, and even like attractions like Hobbiton, it's just crazy. Well, and we're like synonymous with Middle Earth now. Like when people think of New Zealand,
gone berserk, hasn't it? I mean, I was talking with name's gone out of my head completely. Who set it all up and ran it? But they've gone up like something like 400% or 500%. Before we hit COVID, of course. And he was telling me that it's gone crazy. But it's really interesting how the tall poppy syndrome seems to pop up regularly because, there was Matamata, which has got Hobbiton, which is one of the biggest attractions that we've ever had in New Zealand from the perspective of tourism. And, local people complaining about it. And you're sort of going, sorry, what? Hold on. Let's just back the bus up a bit here.
Yeah.
That benefits. I mean, imagine the people coming into Hobbiton who go through all those towns, Cambridge and Hamilton, and come off what used to be cruise liners that come into Auckland to get buses down, people out of Tauranga, people out from all over the country that would go to Hobbiton and still do go to Hobbiton. But it's the same with WETA Cave in Wellington, WETA Workshops.
Yeah.
It's an extraordinary attraction. And, I can't talk too much about it, but something's going to be happening in Auckland very shortly too, which is pretty exciting with regards to WETA. So,
I know a bit about it. Some people have told me stuff behind the scenes, but yeah.
But I've just done something with it, and I'm very excited to it. I mean, Richard Taylor he's just so incredible. I mean, he's just onto it, and he's just like the man's brain must be like fizzing. In such a different way to how Peter works, I guess. Like Peter's fizzing from the perspective of the film and all that sort of thing. But the way Richard works and seeing these things and the way these things come, the mechanics, the mechanisms, the vision that they have, the animatronics and all this sort of stuff, it's phenomenal. And this is New Zealand.
Yeah.
And it's extraordinary. And one of the things that I was talking to him about was the fact how we have to keep up to, we can't just sit on this one level. We've actually got to keep raising the bar all the time to keep up with what's happening overseas. And that's something that we need to be, well, we don't have to be, we can't be complacent about. we have to keep not reinventing the wheel, but looking at new ways how to spin the wheel. That's probably really important. I mean, we're going through a huge change in live performance at the moment in New Zealand because COVID smashed the big no shows right through the middle of it. And, we were going through a bit of a phase change anyway prior to COVID. But the live theatre experience is about getting back into the New Zealand psyche and getting it back into their way of life, because what you and I are doing right now with all this computerization and technology and all that is taking people away from the live experience. And no matter how much you look at something on a screen, and it may have a touch of three-dimensional to it, it's not the same as a live performance. It never will be the same as a live performance. And my desire is to inspire New Zealanders to get back to live theatre. That's why I took MAMIL on the road straight away. Get out there, get people back into the theatre. And we went to Hastings, Nelson first, and Nelson people just went, boom, let's get to the theatre. Hastings did exactly the same in the new venue that Megan Peacock Coyle runs. And it's just got Toy Toy's beautiful. Same with Hamilton, with these are independent. They're not professional theatre companies. These are independent in-house producing venues that were hit really hard, and they didn't really get as much the support as. Because some of them are owned by the council, of course, but some aren't, and they've been really hard hit. So it was really good to get out there and start supporting all over the country. And we had people come to the theatre that hadn't been to see shows for a long, long time. And that meant a lot to me when people said, wow, that was really good. We really enjoyed that. Thank you for reintroducing us back to live theatre. Because this, everyone's raving about Hamilton, which is fantastic, and there's no doubt about it. But it's still, I'm sure it's still not the same as being live. I know Alison Quegan, who I'm working with at the moment, is absolutely besotted with Hamilton. And I haven't seen it yet. And I'm holding off as long as I can until I know what this craze and this desire is about. But I still think that the live theatre experience and making it affordable, that's the thing,
Yeah. It's striking that balance, right? Because obviously you don't want to make it too cheap because you need to make a profit, but then you don't want to make it too expensive that it dissuades people from wanting to go to the theatre. I used to watch a lot of theatre when I was younger because my brother used to do a lot of those theatre shows. Jesus Christ Superstar, Pirates of
Who was that?
My brother, Nathan Riley.
Did I work with him on Jesus Christ Superstar?
I don't think
so. Is that the show that went around New Zealand?
I think I'm not sure if he did the big one. He might have just done like a local one, I think.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
No, because we did one in 94. No, it's probably before you and your brother were born, I would suggest.
Well, my brother's 7 years older than me, so...
No, too young. He would have been about 8. No, he wasn't.
Yeah, and I'm 33, so whatever age...
You really, get out of here. I thought you were about 20. Get out of here.
So like I enjoy a lot of those live shows. They're really great. I think I watched what was it? There was a Queen musical that I watched. I think that was the last big one that I watched. But you just can't beat the live experience. No. The interactions with the crowd, and it's a different type of acting for you, right? So say as opposed to theatre versus film.
It sort of is. It's just in film and television. It's sort of just it's just brought down a little bit. I mean, the intentions and the emotions and the feelings and what you have to go through within yourself to produce the honest or the truth of the performance is still the same. You've just got to increase the size of it when you're in the capacity of the theatre. Like if you're playing to 100 people, 200 speaker. If you're playing to 1,000, it's a lot bigger. You've got to reach the back wall because otherwise the back 3 or 4, 5, 6 rows can't hear you. It's that simple. I mean, the technical aspects of performing live are actually, there's an old quote which is, just say your lines and don't bump into the furniture. It's absolutely true. But you've also got to reach the back wall vocally. And that's where, voice training, when we went to Theatre Corporate Drama School back in 1978, that those sort of things help you develop this incredible instrument, your vocal cords. And the vocal cords are very, very precious to any actor, and you have to look after them. So no smoking. And not so much drinking, so it's really important that you look after it. And I just value greatly, the teaching that we got. Linda Cartwright and Elizabeth McRae, who were voice tutors way back in 1978. What we learned then, and how we utilise what we learned then, still now, vitally important. And that's the technique. I think, I don't know, the training now seems to be 15 minutes of fame. It's all about television and film and the live experience, we were having a huge argument yesterday about how important the classics are. And we were thinking even the word classics would turn people off. So it's, and it doesn't. I mean, there's Shakespeare and Ibsen and Chekhov and all those things that, that they're still hugely popular now because of their content, because of the writing, because of actually the social pressures and feelings and emotions of what the characters have drawn off the page. I mean, I've done lots of them, but you get you can't beat it. You really can't beat it. And we have our own. Alison and I are doing a Roger Hall, who is one of our greatest playwrights. He's written over 40 plays, of which most have been hugely successful in not only in New Zealand, but overseas as well. So we can do it here too. That's the other thing that Reece, that I can talk forever about. By the way, you need to stop me if I go on.
That's right.
But a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my associates, a lot of my friends and my close friends who work in this business, they're as good as anyone else in the world. They really are. And they can do it. And it's just sometimes we don't have the financial capacity to give it the spectacle that it needs. And I think, that's one of the issues that we face here. And I think, the COVID thing may have actually been a bit of a good thing for us because, local is vocal. And that's about what we've got to do. Us as a profession have got to get out there, take our little tours, go into the regions and say, hey, this is as good as you'll get anywhere in the world, and you don't have to pay $135 a ticket to go and see it.
Well, I imagine because of the way we've handled COVID compared to most countries or even westernized countries, obviously New Zealand is being viewed as a bit of a safe haven. And I know Jacinda's mentioned, about using the brand of New Zealand to attract people here. I know there's a number of film companies that are from America that are currently filming here, and it probably needs, and I think particularly for the film theatre, that sort of scene can experience exponential growth just from our brand and the way we've handled things. I mean, we don't know how long this COVID thing is going to go on for.
No. Well, I mean, people are surmising that it's sort of like midway through next year or something, but we're seeing upturns. I mean, there are certain persons in the world that are not helping things at all. Let's not use this as a forum to talk about the idiots of this world.
Yes.
But let's talk about the positives of this world. This is an opportunity for, I mean, it's really interesting, isn't it? I mean, when COVID happened and we had lockdown for 6 weeks. Yeah. The pollution dropped by huge amounts.
Yes.
Green gases dropped by huge amounts. We kept going and we were in lockdown for maybe a year. Maybe the climate change and the temperature of the earth would drop down. I mean, it's really interesting. But of course, we have to be practical. We also have to be realistic. There are billions of people in the world that live on $1 a day, who live entirely by that. And, global warming and green gases and all that sort of thing mean diddly squat. And I understand that fully. Yeah. It's about us, though, as supposedly us getting out there and doing something about it. I mean, it's interesting. I've seen 3 documentaries lately. The David Attenborough film about what's happening with global warming and what's happened and over the last, 200 years, which was extraordinarily scary. I started to watch the water one, which there's a lot of Liam Neeson, Matt Damon, and sorry, I just love it. I love it. I don't know whether Matt Damon likes it. He probably hates that, but I just these guys are doing so much to bring that to our people dismiss actors and celebrities or however you like to refer it as being a bit sort of like wacky, but actually some of them are not. Most of them are not. They're actually very intelligent. We are very intelligent people.
It's the minorities that the vocal minorities destroy it. Yeah. I kind of feel like when it comes to climate change, we're kind of like the frog in the boiling water.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like if it had been very sudden, then I think people would have been like, "Oh my gosh," you know. But because it's like a slow thing that people are just kind of like, And I feel, and you've probably done a lot of traveling in your time, because you spent a bit of time in India. I've been to India.
Me too. Yeah.
And obviously, it's a completely different world to New Zealand.
Yeah.
And even there with the pollution. I think it's very easy here in New Zealand. If you don't do a lot of traveling, you can kind of become disconnected entirely from the rest of the world. And I know for a long time, until I started going traveling, I didn't actually appreciate New Zealand. Like a lot of the lush, beautiful landscapes, the fact that you can just see stars, the sky, without the pollution. It's just stuff that you take for granted until you start visiting other places in the world.
I think the other thing from what you're saying, specifically from what you're saying, is until you travel, you don't really get the huge poverty.
Yes.
You don't get it. And we see it on the television, but it's quite removed from television. It's a bit desensitized because you're looking at it on television. But what people need to do, and I think that's why the Matt Damons and the Liam Neesons and all the people that are doing what they're doing, which is unbelievably good. But if you haven't done any travel and you haven't experienced that, it's really hard for us to sit here in New Zealand and say, we should be doing this, we should be doing that, because it's like, we've got to stop this, until you see actually how hard it is with billions of people below the poverty line. I mean, we've got to do something, but it's a global perspective that we've got to do it on, not necessarily just in New Zealand.
And the problem is when it becomes overly politicized as well.
Yeah.
And it's also really, really complex. It's like Uno, you remove one thing
and something else falls.
And something else falls. Like it's such a complicated thing to solve. And so when people,
it's about stopping the cows farting. I don't know, maybe.
Well, yeah, but then it's obviously New Zealand in particular. We rely a lot on those cows, particularly now.
It's such a conundrum, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, from a country that used to have 90 million sheep, in the 60s and 70s, to a country now that has less than 30 million, and we have cows coming out of our ears. And the rivers and all that, and we give the farmers a hard time, most of them I am sure are completely aware of how important the environment is. I'm sure they're not these. I'm sorry, these guys can't be farmers if they're idiots. They can't be. They have to be some sort of. I mean, I think they're incredible. I really do. And but just as I think everything is important, but as you just said, you take one thing away from something else and the other thing falls over. So it's about how we manage that, and I've got no answers for that. I'm an imbecile when it comes to that sort of thing. But all I know is that we're trying to get out there to entertain people, and that laughing, using the laughing muscles, which is 2, is far more healthier than using the frown muscles, which requires 32.
Yeah, well, that's how you get wrinkles faster as well.
Yeah, that's why I don't have any wrinkles, you can see.
No, pretty
face.
face.
But Reece, we could solve the issues of the world like you and I. We could, but unfortunately, it's got complex, as you said, hugely complex.
Yeah, and I don't like. I mean, obviously the elections are over. Jacinda's won. but I know during that whole political phase, it almost becomes tribal. You know what I mean? Us versus them. There's no middle ground. It's like
no.
You know, some policies are good, some are bad.
Left or right, and or blue or red. You know, and it was really interesting. And some of the personal attacks were quite unjustified and quite ridiculous. I mean, the thing is, I think New Zealanders saw when it became for the first time. I think they saw when it became really silly stuff. You know, like some of the stupid stuff that, it doesn't matter what party it was, but or who it was, but when it becomes personal, then you realise actually you haven't got a point. You're just saying something to put someone down because you think that's all you've got to do. And I think that's what's come out really, really clearly in this election, is that, you know, slinging mud at someone or saying someone's not up to the task of something just because they're in the other party. That doesn't hold anymore. That doesn't stick. And I think people are aware of that. Whatever your policies are, you know, and you know, business people are always saying to me, "Oh my God, we're in deep trouble," and well, we all are. You know, I'm self-employed. My business imploded in one day. I think I lost about $85,000. Contracts just went boom, 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 boom.
So how did you manage? I mean, because obviously you live in Christchurch as well, so you've been through.
No, I live in Nelson now.
Oh, you live in Nelson, but you did live in Christchurch.
Now. Yeah. Well, we suddenly went, because we were like 1 month into building building a downsizing, building a smaller house in Artifine in Nelson, and so the wife and I thought, oh my God, how are we going to deal with this? All I can say is thank you for the wage subsidy. The wage subsidy was incredible. That was a masterstroke. And I know people are going to say, oh, yeah, we've got to pay for it for the rest of our life. But listen, you know what? Without that, we'd have just fallen apart. We would have fallen apart completely. I mean, people think about it, the business situation is huge, and I understand that. But what about the people who do have a family of four and are on, you know, a lower income than anyone else? How do they cope? So wage subsidy was apparent, and lots of businesses utilise that wage subsidy. You know, the theatre companies did, and that kept them from going under, like ATC and Court Theatre, and I'm sure Circa went for the wage subsidy as well. I don't know. I'm not going to. Hi, oops, I'm on Zoom.
Yeah. Well, because one of the things I've always admired about actors as a profession is because it's not really a guaranteed income. You know, it's not necessarily a 9-to-5 job like say some type of industries are. I mean, I've spoken to a number of actors, you know, and it's like, oh, when's my next paycheck coming? You know, so because you're with your case, is it hard to sometimes be like, oh, when's the next income coming through? Look, I mean, it's probably a bit different with theatre because it's a bit more structured. I say compared to say like a film.
Well, I can only speak for myself, Reece, and because you know, with regards to my own confidence and my own ability and my own experience as an actor, I could see what was happening. We had a lockdown. Mm-hmm. I immediately went out to people that I knew and said, hey, shall we pull MAMIL back on the road? So with myself, and you know, there was a responsibility for my technician, my buddy Sean, who does the show, you know, sounds and cues. I thought, hey, this is a good opportunity for me to maybe give Sean a little bit of work because he lost all his work as well in the venues around Christchurch, etc. And also, of course, 10%, well, not 10%, but the royalties to Gregory Cooper, who wrote the play. Mm. So there was 3 of us involved in this, and also supporting our families or our particular, you know, partners, etc. So, yeah, we got it back up on the road. And that was because I knew I had to do something and not just sit there and wait for it to come. We got the wage subsidy. I wanted to do something because I got the wage subsidy. It just took the pressure off about paying rent and just living from day to day. You know, we didn't use the car, which was great. So I got out and walked every day. I walked every day, and I think I'm the fittest I've ever been for ages. You know, approximately 8 to 10K every day.
Wow.
And
That's spinning a negative into a positive.
Turning negative into a positive. And that's what I've done with MAMIL. And, it hasn't been hugely successful from the perspective financially, but from my own satisfaction as an actor and getting out there and seeing people laughing and enjoying and saying, oh my God, we love this show. I mean, this is a 6.5-year-old show, and it's still making people think about things. It's still pertinent. It's still relevant. And it's a fantastic piece of work. And it's a one-man show, but it's like it deals with so many different things. And a lot of those things were happening in COVID: mental health, physical health, relationship health, all those things we were dealing with. And people came and saw it, and I think it was sort of like a breath of fresh air. They could laugh again. Yeah. And I think that's what was really important. And
what's the key? What's the key to comedy? I mean, you've worked with the legend Billy T. James.
He was incredible.
Yeah. I still think like he was ahead of his time.
Oh, he was way ahead of his time. And he just had talent. He had talent coming out of every particle in his body. He was extraordinary. I used to sit and talk with Billy for hours about all sorts of things. I mean, he learned his craft doing the pub circuit in the UK. That's where he learned all the accents. He's the only actor I know who can do and sound authentic almost in every accent in the world. He was extraordinary. We'd suddenly be talking about it, and we'd mention Japan, and he'd just break into Japanese or Spanish or German, or Peter Rowley as well was great mates with Peter, and a couple of times we used to catch up and we'd reminisce about how brilliant Billy was, and he was. I mean, I spent a year with him on the Billy T. James show. That was a situation comedy, a sitcom. In 1989, I think, and it was way ahead of its time. And I look back on it now, and there's some really funny things in it. But I don't know whether people like it or not. But that was extraordinary, And
did you learn much from him?
Huh?
Did you learn much from him? Like what was that?
I just learned about. I learned how to. You learn straight away about when the camera's on you and off you, and where the shot is, and what type of shot it is, mid shot, close up, long shot, blah blah blah, and how the cameras worked. And if you weren't in shot, you didn't worry about it. You just got on with it. It became a sort of I guess like a ballet between the actors and the cameras. And that was quite nice. And the director, we had Aileen O'Sullivan who was directing, and she was very good at making the cameras work with the actors and the actors work with the cameras. And that was a great experience. So these little snippets of that you get make the experience of it a positive one, so that you retain that. So for the next time, you're taking a positive into your newest project, and that worked with Willy Nilly. We went into which was the television series we started after we made the pilot film with Sean Duffy, and that was an education within itself. Sean Duffy, and oh my God, he was so funny. He would take no rubbish from me whatsoever. He'd just grab me by the scruff of the neck and say, "Stop it! Just do what you do. Just do what you're told to do." And there's a lot of it, we worry about our the egos and all that sort of crap. But
did you have any of that on The Hobbit? Because obviously, no. Because I always got the sense on those films, just from behind the scenes, that it was really much a camaraderie.
It was wonderful. It was wonderful, and the biggest promoters of it that were one for all and all for one were Martin Freeman. Yeah. He was extraordinary, Aidan Turner, and the New Zealanders were fantastic. The Jed Brophies and the Peter Hambletons and myself and a lovely actor from lovely young who became sort of like our little brother, and that was Adam Brown, who we still, my wife and I have adopted Adam actually. That's what we want to do, and he's and of course Graham McTavish, who was very difficult to work with. He wasn't. I used to really annoy him. I used to go and stand right beside him. I think you might have seen that in the back tapes. I'd go and stand right and push my body into him, and he would stop me will you get away from me, you horrible little man? You know, and it was fun and stuff like that. And Richard Armitage, who played Thorin Oakenshield. I mean, seriously, you talk about things from the perspective of following people, or great followers, and we would have followed him anywhere. He had this aura of being like, I mean, this sounds terrible to equate it with something that I have no knowledge of, nor would I ever want to have knowledge of, and in its feelings, like being in the trenches, and they say you go over the top and follow your leader. Well, we would have gone over the top and followed Richard. We've had this discussion. You know, you would have actually gone over the top and followed Richard Armitage, and that's to do with the casting. You know, they cast this wonderful actor, Richard Armitage, as the leader of the dwarves, and we would have. I mean, even talking with people like John Callan, who was one of the older dwarves with us. I mean, John's been around and done an awful lot, and he's a very, very good friend of mine. And he said, he's just extraordinary, you know? It was an extraordinary experience.
Did you pinch yourself at all, being like,
pinched every day. Yeah. Every day. Because, you know, I got through the audition process, which we all did, and a good story is I'd been told when I went up to do a wardrobe call, and we were not allowed to let the public know that we'd been cast in The Hobbit yet, because some parts hadn't been cast yet.
Right.
So I'm walking through Wellington Airport and I'm smiling, and about 50 metres down the corridor, I could see Jed Brophy.
Yeah,
coming the other way, and he was smiling too, and we were looking at each other, and we both knew. And I said, "Have you had the same news?" He said, "Yep." "Have you?" "Yep." We just hugged each other and couldn't stop laughing. It was fantastic, and you know, and he and I just bonded straight away. And he, myself, and Adam Brown became what we call the you know, the Nori, Dori, and Ori, the naughty glories, we called ourselves, or something. Anyway, and we had backstories for everything, and we worked very closely as the three brothers, the family, and I think it worked really well for us. We, you know, both the boys talk about that now as being something that was, you know, used to drive them crazy, because I would say, "Now, where have we come from? What are we doing? How do we feel about this?" And they'd say, "Oh, for God's sake, will you?" And
you can't swear on here, by the way.
Well, yeah, maybe, but I sometimes I swear too much. My God, but it was really good, because we had a very close knit. The three of us were very good, and we worked together pretty well. And I was like this fussy older brother of Adam, and Jed was the thief who had left home early. But you know, if you put that with what the other dwarves were bringing from their relationships with each other as brothers, and then you put that with, you know, the Martin Freeman, the magic of Martin Freeman, who made the most extraordinary choices. That's what I learned out of that, watching this gentleman making his choices as to what Bilbo would do.
Would he change it take to take?
Oh yeah, he would just. Yeah. Peter would give him some word of God thoughts, and he would take it, and then with that, then incorporate that into how he would translate that into what Bilbo Baggins would do. And not Bilbo Baggins, yeah, it's
Bilbo Baggins.
Yeah, this. It's nearly a decade ago, for God's sake, but it feels like only yesterday. But Martin Freeman made the most extraordinary choices as an actor, and to watch that was magic. Watching him was magic, and him working with Thorin, with Richard, and Ken as well, Ken Stock, and Graham. They had, you know, and the boys, Aidan and Dean O'Gorman, who were the two brothers, and Dean and Aidan hit it off like that. It was fantastic to watch that. That was an extraordinary experience, and William Kircher was there as well. And look, it was an extraordinary experience, and yes, pinch yourself.
How long did it take for the prosthetic work when you were getting all? How long did you have to sit in makeup for each day?
Well, some more than others, but for me, it was an hour first up with Don, my prosthetic put-on-er. He and I had the weirdest of relationships, but it was wonderful. I loved Don. And then I went to breakfast. And then I would come back and I would get my hair, and Jamie Lee would put all my hair and my whiskers, and which was the worst part of it. Oh God, I
super itchy
facial hair. Oh God, makes me. Oh, it just makes the back of my neck go up.
Does it make you itchy though?
Oh, itchy, mate. You have no idea. I've got a great story. Oh, it's another bloody story. Towards the end of filming, we were doing something in the studio at Miramar. And my face was just like this. I don't know what it was. It must have been finally after about a year, the glue was going, was on my face, and my face was going, "You're not going to wear this anymore." It was just driving me crazy. So I had air blowing on it, and or some sort of force of nature, like my hands rubbing it. It seemed to be okay, but that only just irritated it. So I thought, oh, bugger this. And we were having what was known as one of those Wellington windy days, which is a huge storm, sort of pre-storm windy days. So I went outside in the studio and lay down outside on the ground and let the wind just blow through this freaking thing. Oh, fuck, it was awful. And so I did. And then Peter had actually come out to go somewhere and took a photograph of it and said, there are poor people outside trying to get work. Camping outside, or poor actors trying to get work outside camp to do auditions early, and it was me, and I just thought, oh my God! But it was fun. But it was more. I mean, it was just. I didn't mind the prosthetic was fine. Don was great. The costumes were amazing, but they were so heavy to start with. We went.
Because you did a boot camp as well.
Yeah, we did a Dwarf Bootcamp, which was extraordinary. Running around pretending to be, with Terry. Who was the dwarf guy, making us get our weight down to become dwarfs, oh God, Terry Notary, that's right, and that was fun, but Ken didn't enjoy that at all. Oh God, he was amazing. He says, don't fucking do this, you fucking do your fucking shit, and then. So he was, but everyone else. There was one day we were way up on the hills above the golf course in Lyell Bay, I think somewhere, and we were out doing sort of skirmishes, and Richard was leading us, and we were all talking in our accents. Let's go that way, no, let's go this way, and then we run up, and there was this woman walking her dog, and these guys came running past doing this extraordinary sort of slightly lower in their centre of gravity run, and going past going, follow there, and then I think it was John Cowan who stopped and said to them, look, I'm sorry, you don't want to be worried, we've just let them out for the day, but they'll be going back, you'll be safe, so that was quite a good funny story. There were lots of those. There were lots of good funny stories.
How did you find the green screen stuff? Because you did motion capture as well for the trolls, didn't you?
Yeah. Oh, Burt. Burt was funny. Oh my God. Pete said that's used to really enjoy that because it was self-abuse, especially when my character, who was Dori, swung his bolos, right, and then hits Burt in the balls. Yeah. Which is my character of the trolls. So Pete regarded that as the most wonderful piece of self-abuse he's ever seen. But yeah, screen. Well, it's still the same. You're with the actors. It doesn't matter what's behind you. The splendor and the openness of when we were down in Auraki. Auraki was extraordinary. I mean, you could feel it. You could feel the magnificence of Auraki over down the valley, and then I can't remember the name of the lake, but it was beautiful. But when you're in the green screen, if you're with the characters and you're working away with your acting colleagues, shouldn't make much difference really, because it's just all about how the relationship develops between the three characters, Burt, and the other two trolls. So it's the same with the dwarves when we were doing green screen. The only difficult bit was when we were fighting imaginary trolls.
That would be difficult because
we were knackered. We were absolutely knackered. Thank God we were fit. Even Jed Brophy had to sort of sit down after about 10 or 12 takes. He was knackered. And this is Jed Brophy, who's Mr. Fitness Freak. And it was amazing. And like, oh, here comes one now. And we were knackered by the end of it. John, who was 10 years older than me, John was amazing. I couldn't believe it. But he we had to keep an eye on it. And of course, Stephen Hunter, who played the biggest of the dwarves, he was wearing a huge amounts of prosthetic and fat suits and God knows what. And he was amazing, but he was knackered by the end of it. We all were. Everybody was absolutely stuffed. And imagining all these things. I mean, if you're doing it with a group of people and they're all doing the same thing, it's a lot easier than doing it on your own. Imagining things.
Well, you can feed off of them, I suppose.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. That's what it's all about,
Have you seen the newest technology that they're using now? Because it'll probably end up replacing green screen at some point, those virtual sets. I think they've incorporated on.
I've not actually worked on one, but I've seen it. Yeah, it's interesting. But as I say, it's still virtual.
Yeah, it is virtual. But I suppose you can at least see the background.
You can see a desk. Yeah, you can see a desk. You can see a thing of books, and it all adds to that feeling, I guess. But it's.
But I imagine the actual location shoots would have been the best.
And the Pelorus, when we were down at the Pelorus River doing all the barrels, my God, the barrels was, I think, one of the best parts of the whole film.
It looked like a theme park from behind the scenes.
When we went in the barrels and there was this great river, this water race that had been built for us out at one of the factories in Upper Hutt, which was one of Pete's storage facilities. And it was like, I think it was about, it must have been 500 meters long in a rectangular, and it was powered by two V16 diesel engines, the water. It was, talk about boys let loose in a Disney ride. And everyone, it was insane. It was insane. They were all mad. It was just such fun. We'd have races around the track in this water with all of us making it go faster. These are these barrels that had a solenoid, that kept the balance good, and we'd be making them go bumping into each other and pushing us out of the way. Hunter and Turner used to go absolutely nuts with it. It's insane. It was great. Oh my God, it was such fun. And in the Pelorus, of course, we were in the actual river going down in these barrels. And of course, we wear these fat suits, right? And you can actually see it in the film. The barrels come into shore and we get out of the barrels and you can see that everyone's really struggling. Really struggling, because there's there must be 16 to 20 gallons of water in the fat suit. So as you tried to get up, the water would slowly drain out of your fat suit down into your boots until you finally got rid of it. And then you could stand up. It was incredible. You had to do no acting when you got out of the water, trust me. We were stuffed, but it was... It probably will never happen again, not to the capacity and the size of how that was. It was immense.
Because how many days shoot was it?
I think it was.
Was it a full year?
It was over a year. It was over a year. It was nearly 14 months if you include the pickups. We didn't shoot all that long, but I know that the shoot was nearly the whole of the year. Up till, we went on location for 7 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 or 7 weeks. And then we came back to do the pickups, and they finished in January or February, and we did the pickups in May, I think, in 2012. And then the first film was launched in 2012, 14. And it was best job of my life. Amazing. Extraordinary.
Yeah, you can kind of tell in the behind-the-scenes footage that everyone looked like they were having fun, which is the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But the good thing is we could actually, and you just watched all those other actors, the internationals that would come in, like Lee Pace and Evangeline Lilly, and we even had, and Sir Ian McKellen. doyen, theatrically and filmically.
He loves New Zealand, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, but he's a genius. I mean, he is. His acting is extraordinary.
Oh,
They all were. We even had Billy Connolly out there, which was just amazing. Dear Billy. But all the other, and Stephen Fry. Oh my God, Stephen Fry had the most extraordinary conversation with him about Blackadder, and it was wonderful. How they came up with Captain Darling. Because the actor I can't remember his name, who was playing Captain Darling. I can see now. My apologies. I do beg your pardon. Anyway, he was having some trouble saying, "Oh God, how am I going to do this?" Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the conversation evolved between him and Stephen, and Stephen said, "Well, maybe we should put something in his name," and apparently Captain Darling. He's a captain, darling, and the conversation sort of came from that. So that was one of many. And Kate Blanchett had a great conversation with him. Hugo Weaving. These people are just wonderful people. They're really very, very erudite, intelligent, wonderful people who have got extraordinary ability to not alone act, but also make very, very good decisions about things that they do in their lives. And like normal people, where there's nothing specifically different about actors. We're normal people. It's so overly, so much of it is sensationalized by
media.
It's just ridiculous, the crap that they come out with.
How was it to stay kind of grounded when the whole thing blew up? I mean, you went to the premieres, obviously.
Yeah.
And I guess you're signing stuff and people wanting to take pictures and...
Well, most of us were fine, because that was part of the gig, I can't speak for anyone else but for me, it was part of the gig. I didn't get wound up in it. I didn't get lost in it. I didn't think that this specifically was going to change my life because I'm a jobbing actor. That's what I do. And this one just had a little bit more frills than any of the other ones that I've done, and I enjoyed that. And I responded, I think, well from the perspective of being Mark Hadlow doing my job. Didn't make up too many fusses and cause any problems, and I just went in every day to do my job, and that is the bottom line. As we were talking way back about 40 minutes ago.
Yeah,
I go in every day to do my job, and most of the guys were like that. There probably were a couple of instances where some people got a bit dramatic and a bit egotistical and a bit over themselves, but the trouble is you do get over yourself very quickly, because if you start, the good thing about the group, and I think what was really good, is if anyone sort of did start getting a little bit sort of tantrumy or anything like that, I think the group would have sort of
sorted them out.
It was a bit like boarding school, I guess. If someone starts, I remember at boarding school, if someone started to be a bit sort of over dramatic and started sort of taking center stage and on everything and doing everything, people would take it in the hand. I guess I can't, but I never saw anything of that. From my perspective, as just and we were support dwarves. We had lines, but we certainly weren't major components with regards to the storyline from that perspective. But our characters were vitally important with regards to being a part of the group of the dwarves, because it was the story of the Hobbit, which is about the dwarves and Bilbo Baggins. Yeah. And being a part of that was the story. That was it. So you just went with it and did what was written, and you spoke. We had lines, and I was very lucky. I counted them. Yeah.
Do you can you walk the streets and be okay, or do people stop you?
No, not for the Hobbit. I don't get stopped for the Hobbit.
But I mean, in general, because obviously you've been in the game a long time.
Yeah. And that's fine. I always say hello, and because that's part of the job, I mean, it's, wow. If people stop me and say, I saw the show, amazing, thank you so much. I hated the show. Oh, okay, your prerogative. Thank you very much. But that happens very rarely. But yeah, part of the job. you know, and it's quite nice, especially if you get into a conversation, you know, 2 or 3 lines of conversation with people about how much they enjoyed it, what they thought about it, you know, specifically from theatre. I love it. I love the reactions from theatre, because that's actually them, you know, emoting and actually saying, yes, I got that out of it. I experienced that from the live perspective. Filmically, yeah, well, that's a bit different, I think. I mean, Jed and I went on and 3 years ago did Blue Moon, which was the film that Steph Harris made, and it was shot in Motueka. We had possibly the most satisfying and closest working situation I've had with any actor in my life, and that was with Jed on that. And it was great. We get recognised from that. I get recognised a lot from that, from Nelson, but I also get recognised from Willy Nilly still, you know, and Mortal Engines too, which was great. There's a lovely little bit of Mortal Engines, which was fabulous. You know, Stigwood. I loved Stigwood. I actually thought I wasn't in it. Actually, I thought I'd been, because I didn't get a call to go and do any post work. You know, any ADR afterwards, and I thought, oh God. Because normally everyone gets to do ADR, which is additional dialogue recording, just for those people that don't know what it is. And so Amanda Walker rang me to say, now, look, are you going to come to the premiere? I said, well, Amanda, yes, I will, but I mean, I'm not expecting anything, because I mean, am I still in it? I don't think so, because I didn't get it. She said, what do you mean? What do you mean? What the fuck are you talking about? And she said, of course you're in it. That's amazing. And I thought, oh, okay. I couldn't go as I was working. I was doing a theatre piece. But when I saw it, and my wife said the same thing, and about 3 or 4 other people have said the same thing, they think it's one of the best things I've ever done, which was like... It was
great. It
was
caught
just
me
in the moment
completely
there.
by surprise, because I didn't even know that you were in it. So when I watched it and I saw you in it, I was like,
yeah. It was a great role. It was a great role. It was a great little moment of... And I don't know, it was great, you know, because we went through a whole process, Philippa and Peter and...
Did you have to audition for that?
Yeah. But so I was cast as someone else. And then they asked me to play Stigwood, because they said they needed someone who can really... And I think it was the theatrical perspective as well, which that
makes sense.
Perspective of, like, you know, come on up, we've got people to sell, and it was all that sort of business. But it was funny. We went through quite a selection of what accent are we going to do? Where is he going to be from? So we went down. We can't do Yorkshire because we had Dori the Dwarf. We can't do that. We definitely wanted to be American, because although the American, you know, accents in certain places are wonderful, it didn't feel right, because it had that very sort of like English feel to where it was, you know. But I thought in the same instance, well, yeah, we tried South African even, you know, to see
really?
What we do. Yeah, we went all over the place, and I used to read things to say, look, maybe we could do it South African, you know, or something like that. You know, we tried it even. I think we went for German a little bit, but there was the other character that Joel Tobeck played, who I think he German? I can't remember. Anyway, and then finally I said, well, how about if I do a salute sort of thing to Dame Edna, because it's actually Les Patterson, you know, like, ladies and gentlemen, it's so lovely to have you all here. I've got my shit all over my trousers, and I've got everything. I've got my suit hanging out, you know, being an ambassador for Australia. And, you know, so I thought, well, let's give that a go. So that's where that, and Pete sort of quite liked that, you know, because Barry Humphries is a lovely man. What a lovely man he is. It's funny, there's all these lovely people everywhere, and you meet them and they go, oh my God, you're just what I thought you would be like, you know, and it's wonderful. It's nice to actually sort of have that. I mean, the only boyhood hero that I've never met that I really loved was Les Dawson, because he was a wonderful English comedian who would... Dad and I used to watch him on television all the time, and he's the only actor that I've ever sent a fan letter to who actually sent something back.
Really?
Cosmo small piece, and said, to Mark, best wishes, Les Dawson.
Have you hung it up on the wall?
Yeah, it's in my little thing, yeah.
Oh, good man.
Thank you, Les Dawson. R.I.P. He was very.
How do you manage to master so many different accents? Like, how did you learn that ability?
It's the ear.
So can you just listen to an accent and then you can instantly?
Yeah. I mean, some you've got to listen to for a while. I mean, I can't do Geordie. And the good thing is that when you know you're going to do an accent, you could then go away and research it. Then go away and you start hearing it. You start, how's the lilt? How's the phrasing? How does it all join together? I mean, when I'm doing MAMIL, I have to play Tom Jones, not specifically as Tom Jones, but I have to do a Welsh accent, and it's very, very strange to actually try and do a Welsh accent, because immediately some people who do Welsh accents, it can immediately go to Pakistani because it sounds like that. And one of the I think there's a theory that why the Indian accent is a bit like the Welsh accent is because when Clive of India was in India, in the 16th century, when they went to fight there, the English Empire went to fight there, was in the 17 somethings. The Welsh regiments went with him. So you had all these Welsh guys in India going around, you see, and with the Welsh lilt. I don't know, it could be complete fallacy, I don't know. Anyway, but that's what you do, and I love accents. I think accents are fabulous, and
they're great.
Yeah, I mean, I lived for 3 years in India, and I constantly talk like that all the time.
I did the same thing when I was there.
I've got a friend of mine, Arjun Gill, who's his dad and I were good friends. But Arjun, and he'll ring me up, and he's like, Arjun's his mum's English, but his dad is Indian, and he read, "What are you doing, man? Tell me what you're doing." So we get into this. I mean, it's terribly inappropriate. It is, but for some reason, it's not trying to.
Well, it's misinterpreted sometimes as I suppose being mocking, or
it's not at all.
When it's not,
it's actually a salutation, because the accent is great. I mean, one of the accents I use in MAMIL, who's wonderful. Wayne, I am down the back here. I have expired nappy rash cream available for purchase at half price. It is very good for saddle sore, so pay me a visit if you have pain in the ass. And it just works, and accents are fabulous because I think they break down barriers.
They do.
Immediately. They break down barriers. And I think the more we hear of it, the more we realize how culturally expansive this world is, the better we're going to be. I mean, I can't believe where we are now, with the other ethnicities and cultures and people from other parts of the world that live in New Zealand now. It's
it's very, very multicultural.
Continue and grow, and I mean, and not just Tangata Whenua, and not just Māori or Pacific Island. I mean, the Chinese community here is huge. The Indian community is huge, and the Eastern European community is growing hugely here. I love it. I bring it on. Another accent, love to. Yeah.
Have you done much voice acting work?
A lot. I've done a lot, but isn't it funny? I was contracted to the radio network before it became New Zealand NZME, and I did 17 years of ads and every week for 17 years, and then without a word, no text, no telephone call, no nothing. It just suddenly stopped.
Really?
It's money. It's all to do with money. It's like, and I used to love it. I'd go in there and with Alan in Christchurch in the studio and do, every week I'd have a voice session. I'd go in there and do, 6 to 8 to 10 ads every week, voicing them. And the fun was creating the characters that you could on radio, because you can do it better than you can live, because your face isn't involved. So you can do extraordinary things with your voice on a radio mic or on a mic that you can't do live, because you're in such strange positions to do it. Your voice is up there, and you actually can't do it like that live, because otherwise you're doing something else. And I really miss it. I don't know what's happening with the voice situation in the world.
I think like a lot of voice actors do stuff for, say, video games now because of...
Yeah. Well, Graham McTavish is doing lots of that, I think.
Yeah, because video games are becoming a bit more cinematic, and there's a lot more film elements to it, and a lot more narrative on story and stuff. So, and I know I had a guy on my show, actually, who's the founder of this, the biggest esports company in Australasia. And because I might try and talk to politicians about this if I get Jacinda on or whoever. about more funding towards that, because there's actually a good interlink between film and video games, particularly these days. I actually think there could be a lot of crossover, particularly for voice acting. Yeah, so
I voice acting. I love voice. I think voice, the microphone, what you can do with the mic. I mean, I had to set up the clothes drying horse with the blanket over it.
yes.
Well, I did some stuff for Ray Thompson and the tribe stuff, and I was doing that yesterday, and God knows what that sounds like, because you're on your own, and I actually got lent a microphone to use, and it's on the desk, and it's just. But I was there thinking, oh my God, this feels so good. What am I going to do? And I ended up doing my own voice, but slightly, just my own voice. But I've got to find another voice for this other character I've got to do. So I'm going to be going, going over it and doing whatever I have to do it.
Is there anything that you haven't done that you still want to do? In terms of like the acting world?
No, I look, anything's a challenge. And as long as it still stays a challenge, and as long as I still get excited by it, as long as I still get anxious about it from the perspective of I need to do the best job I can with it, that's the anxiety angle, then I don't care what it is. I do, corporate's gone, corporate emceeing and stuff like that's obviously taken a back seat because the conferences have died a bit, but I'm doing a couple this week. And I love it. It's just about relating with people. I'm doing I do a little bit of conference talking about awareness, self-awareness, and how we as because we're using all these technologies and these machines, and we're in here doing this all the time, we lose a little bit of the periphery, realizing how important that your awareness of everything outside of that is still vitally important, so that you don't become selective with regards to what you actually pay attention to. And that also includes manners and, being aware of someone else's feelings and their sentiments and how they're feeling, and not just shutting them off because you think you can send an email and that solves it. Emails, as wonderful as they are, don't have an emotion that goes with it.
Yeah, I agree.
And I agree. And I think that's where the problem lies. So what I like to do is I like to take the email and turn it into an emotional commitment to someone. In whatever level you want to commit it in, and saying, when you actually put Fred with nothing else, what is that actually saying? When you meet someone, oh, g'day, Fred. You don't actually say Fred. You actually say, hi, mate. Hi, Fred. How you doing? Everything all right? Hey, listen, just about that thing we were talking about the other day, it needs to be colloquial. It needs to be, we still need to have that communication issue. And I think one of the issues is these things don't allow us to have that emotional communication that we do one-on-one.
Yeah, I agree. I think in this day and age with social media and everything going digital, I think there's a portion of us that are losing the ability just to have a conversation.
Yeah.
There's some people I can talk to online and then I meet them face to face, and there's almost like a socially awkward factor because they haven't learned that ability. And that's partly something that I worry about the next generation, because they're growing up with all these devices that didn't really grow up in our day, at least not to the degree that they are now. And so, you're learning, you got kids who are glued to a phone or an iPad, and they're not out there interacting with other kids. And it's so, so important. So important.
Vital, because that's what makes the difference between human beings being able to relate to each other. And I think our communication skills have been wound down quite a bit. And that's why we have problems that we have. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I can feel it all the time, when you have... when you meet someone and they're sort of very timid and they're very awkward about communicating with you, and you think, oh my God, okay. But, and it's, and it's not that I'm a technophobe, nor I expect anyone else to be a technophobe, but there is certainly, it's vitally important that we utilize all these devices that we have, but it's also vitally important that we remain attached to one another, that we remain aware of someone else, self-awareness, self-discipline, self-monitoring. monitoring ourselves, in the perspective of what situation you're in. Some people have no filter because they've been on, they think they can just talk as an email, blah, 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 and you can't.
Yeah. Well, I also know some people that will say whatever they want online, but then in person, they're nothing like that as well.
Yeah.
It's almost like forming like a online persona or an.
Yeah, well, they become phantoms. It's the phantom person, isn't it? The phantom person online. You are an absolute asshole. And then you meet them. Hi. Oh, yeah. Hi. What? Were you the one that said that I was an asshole? No. Did I? Oh, I'm so sorry. You were actually a lovely person, Life, what our kids are growing up with, what the generations are growing up with is. Yeah. I take my hat off to my daughters and even my little grandson, who's one. What they've got ahead of them is incredible. But our and your generation 2, 3, 30 years younger than me, but it was so much more simplified when I grew up. There was none of this. None of this.
Yeah.
So our communication was about talking to someone. It's the only way we had to, talking to someone 3-dimensionally, which is why I love theatre.
Yeah. Well, it's a reminder of how things should be or used to be.
Yeah.
That's the way it should.
And then of course there's people who will say, oh my God, he's just an old fart. Oh, he's just a grumpy old man, Well, I actually think
both kind of generations can learn something from each other, right? I kind of feel, and I'm starting to see this with myself, is the older I get, the kind of more stuck in your ways you get. You kind of get stuck in your little bubble or your comfort zone.
Well, my ex-wife and her husband, who we actually call each other husband-in-law. It's very funny. But John's younger than I am, and we've got a system now. Whenever either of us hear each other talking like an old grumpy old man, we go. Now you can work out the C, okay, yourself. Maybe it's see you next Tuesday, but it's like we suddenly see John go.
I might have to start using that. That's
hilarious. No, and it works every time, and I suddenly go, oh, am I? And he goes, yes. And it works great. It really does.
That's good, though, that there's self-awareness in regards to that.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
You do need that. That's a skill that's hard to acquire.
Very much so.
In this day and age, particularly if you've got a lot of yes men or yes people around you.
So many yes people out there, aren't there? Oh, my God.
So bad.
It's actually frightening. It's frightening. I mean, there are so many people doing jobs in situations where they've actually, they've got the wherewithal from university, they've got the degrees stacking up behind them, and all this sort of thing, but the experience is lacking, and that is showing really interestingly enough in our business.
Really? Because obviously you must hold auditions.
Well, we do, and and there's all sorts of ideology behind auditions and all sorts of things, and we all have our ways and our means of doing auditions. I still find it absolutely cringe-worthy when I have to do an audition for a film or television. All I'm trying to do is remember the frickin' lines that I've learned for the television audition. So how you can ever, present a character or to in an audition situation on film, on being recorded, so that the person looking at it can see that you're actually can do something. Well, it was impossible from my perspective. My hit rate is like 1% out of 100 from the audition perspective. And that's an anxiety, but people are helping me deal with that because I'm listening to them and asking how they cope with it and how they deal with it. But the theatre audition is a whole different ballgame because you've actually got to get out there and you've got to go cha-cha. You've actually got to know the words. You've got to be out there. You've got to hit the back wall. Whole different ballgame. I haven't auditioned for theatre for a long, 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 long time, and I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But all I can say is whatever the situation or the rehearsal process that I go through to get into the rehearsal is I bring the experience that I've had of 42 years with me to take onto the floor. And then from that, we build we build the performance. We build, and if the play's, a tragedy or a classic or a comedy or a horror or whatever it is, whatever the play is, whether it's a musical even, you bring that with you to work with people to create that,
So when you hold an audition, what are some of the common mistakes that actors will make?
Oh, mate, I wouldn't even begin to tell you. I wouldn't know. But when someone hasn't prepared, that's obviously, that's obviously the first eye opener. But it's just their presence, the presence,
When you say presence, do you mean nerves?
Are they in the role? Are they in that moment? Are they doing what the character is doing? Is that true? Is it real? Is it honest? Or is it just a facade? I mean, some situations, some things are facade. I mean, musicals require this ability to go in and out of doing a song, back into the play, coming out again, and the songs are sort of heightened to become very sort of like almost like fantasy. I think songs with regards to musicals.
Or Bollywood.
But it's also, I mean, but they also tell a story. In reality, a musical is a very romantic. The musicals of the 50s. The Singing in the Rains and all that were extraordinary things. All those wonderful actors. Doing those wonderful musicals, and that was very much a heightened form of how people were living. That's how they got out of, I guess, the depressions and whatever, because it's like an unreality. But it's lovely. I love musicals. I love doing musicals. I've done lots of them. I'm doing a pantomime at the end of the year, and I get to sing a song with Linda Milligan in Cinderella. I don't know what the song is yet, but hopefully we'll find out. But I love it. I love singing. But it's very nervous because unlike acting, where you can actually invent dialogue if you're dry, in a musical you can't, because the beat never stops. I think I'm the only person to ever do Jesus Christ Superstar. We had 3 previews, and the previews were magic. They were magic. I mean, Jesus, I am overjoyed to meet you face to face, and doing riffraff and not riffraff.
Judas?
No. Judas was no, who was I playing? Herod, King Herod. Christ, I can't even remember who I played. Playing King Herod, and Will, who was the music conductor and the musical director, was you go off the 3. You nailed it, right. So I got to opening night. Jesus, I am overjoyed to meet you face to face. You've been doing all the things all around the place. See you later. Are you coming back?
Yeah, I'm just going to have copies.
Okay, I'll sorry.
Do you want me to wait?
Yeah, I'll be there in about 10 minutes. When are we finishing? 5 minutes?
Yeah, well, we can finish up in the next couple of minutes.
Okay, we'll finish up the next couple of minutes. Be lovely. Sorry to interrupt the thing, but
that's all right.
Ex-wives and husband-in-laws are very important.
Yeah.
Anyone's going, Jesus, I'm overjoyed to meet you face to face. You've been getting quite a name all around the place. You've been amazing and coming to this house. I don't know what you're going to do, but something will come soon. Just shit came out of my mouth. Will's conducting going, what the fuck is going on here? And all the other cast that are around on the edge of the stage are going, oh my God. I completely lost it on the opening night, but I didn't stop. That's the thing about me. I can't rhyme. Greg Cooper, the writer of MAMIL and many other things that we've worked with, well, he's hysterical. He's on the ground laughing if I have to do rhyming couplet or rhyme or do poetry. I cannot rhyme. The hat jumped out. No, there we go. The cat jumped out of the hat. That's it. I can't. So anyway, I got back on. But I mean, that's the thing, You don't stop. You've just got to try and find your way through it. And the brain is going, boom, boom, boom. Where are you, you fucking idiot? Get back into this thing. And of course, everyone dries. You can't do anything about it. But a musical is scary because you can't hold up the lyrics. It doesn't stop. Musicals stop for no man or woman. The lyrics just keep on going. So yeah, it's a fascinating industry. Fascinating. I'm sorry, Reece. I'm just
that's hey, this has been amazing. I'll wrap up here. I know you got to get going. Where is all your social media where anyone can follow you? And even your
markhadlow@me.com. But there's also stuff. I mean, if you look up IMDb, MAMIL will come up. There's so much stuff on MAMIL. If you just look up Mark Hadlow, it'll come up. And there's lots of stuff. But the social media, on Instagram, I've got an Instagram. I'm also on Twitter, but I'm not on Facebook. I don't know. There's something about it that just. I'm not
it's
interested.
Negative. I mean, if I didn't do this podcast, I wouldn't even be on social media. Honest with you.
I just find I'm not interested in people's negativity.
Yep.
For whatever reasons that they offer, unless it's positive criticism, which is always a good thing.
You don't want to be doing this.
No, none of that. I just want old yes people.
Right.
But look, I'm not afraid of most things, but I just don't need the bullshit, you know?
Yep.
I just want to get on and do my thing. And I also want to support people as much as I can, you know, especially in our industry, which is going through a bit of a tough time. So if I can get out there and do things and do jobs to help, you know, stimulate our profession, especially theatrically, then I'm fully behind it, and I always will be. I support totally. You know, there's a lot of my friends are in this business, and I care about them. I care about New Zealand entertainment. I care about New Zealand stuff. That's why MAMIL is so good. It's totally written by a New Zealander, totally performed by a New Zealander. The lighting, everything is involved in it is New Zealand. And we are as good as anywhere else in the world. Local is vocal.
I agree. And that's a good place to end it. Mark, you've been awesome.
Reece,
Let me know when you're in the Hamilton area. I will buy you lunch. It is on me. Thank you so much for doing this.
Pleasure, my friend.
Yes, I could talk to you all day, but obviously, you know, time does not permit that. But that's the show, everyone. Make sure you share, like, and subscribe. Support the man Mark and his theatre shows if it's in an area near you. And until next time, stay safe.